Today's interview is amazing. I'm speaking to David Ditchfield from Cambridge, England, about his near-death experience, and he explains the other side like no other. I absolutely love this interview. He's also the author of Shine On, a new book that I recommend. He's going to be speaking at the 3rd Annual Near-Death Experience Summit. Check out his website where you can see more about his paintings. He can paint amazing now after his near-death experience. And he's also a musician, and the music that you're hearing right now was composed by him after his terrible accident, where he's come through the other side and he's sharing a message with the world. Welcome, David. How are you?
Thank you. What a lovely welcome. I'm good, thanks.
Was that a little shocking for you? Okay, so I wanted to get us warmed up first because there's a lot to share today. You've had an NDE experience, and as you described prior to the NDE experience, you were just a regular guy living in Cambridge, England. Can you tell us a little bit about that, living in Cambridge, and what life was like before your NDE?
Okay, well, actually, I'm living here now, but before my NDE, I was actually living in London at the time. And London, like all capital cities, is, it's a bit of a challenge to get by making money anyway. It certainly is. And it's also, London is very, very much made up of successful people. And so that was kind of tough for me. I'd left school without any qualifications because I'm dyslexic actually, and I didn't actually realize that at all. I wasn't diagnosed, and then so there you go. So I was finding it hard to get by in life and get a job and stuff. So I was picking up work, mainly manual laboring, working on building sites and painting and decorating and stuff. So. And I wasn't actually that good at that kind of work either. So I didn't even fit in there. These other guys, I'd look around and think, wow, you've just plastered a ceiling. How did you do that? And they used to laugh at me and call me Speedy because I was just so out of sync with it all. But
That's so fun and warm of you to share. It's like you were a real guy going through life, making your way through, and now you're an author, and there's something super special about you aside from your phenomenal book Shine On. You can now, I understand, paint amazing, and I can see a couple of them back there. Are those yours?
Yeah, they are. They kind of circulate around some of my paintings, so there's a couple there in the background. Yeah,
really beautiful. And also music. Tell us about your new music ability.
Following my near-death experience, I realized that I gained these new abilities. First of all, it was painting that came around. It was basically a need to be able to tell the whole world what I'd seen in my near-death experience. I really wanted everyone to see it all. So it started with paintings, but music came second. Basically, I picked up an old synthesizer that I was playing around with one evening, and this chord progression came through, and I thought, I like the sound of that. That sounds lovely. So I recorded it on an old cassette recorder, which is all I got at that stage. And I started developing it up, and I thought this could be played by an orchestra. And I made friends with a cello player at that point, and we used to meet for coffee and stuff. And she said, "How's it going? What have you been up to?" And I said, "Oh, I've just been working on this piece of music." And I laughed and said, "It sounds like it should be played by orchestra and not a rock and roll band, which is what I'd used to be sort of looking at, the idea of." And she said, "Oh, well, maybe we could play it one day, And so I thought, right, I'm going to hold you to that. Wow. So I did, and I developed it up. My brother, who also lived down in London, and he said to me, "Look, I've got this package that you could put onto it's a software, you can attach it to your laptop, and when you play your keyboard, and you play the notes on the keyboard, it will transpose it into musical notation." So that's what I did, and I got all the score printed up, and I contacted my friend. I said, "Would you like to have a look at what I've done?" So she did, and
So let me get this straight. Prior to this, you didn't have any formal training. Prior to this, you even struggled doing construction, but suddenly you're now involved with orchestra. And I heard that your shows are sold out. Is this?
That's right. Yeah.
Well, I guess it begs the question, what happened in your near-death experience? Take us to the day, and then let us know what happened on the other side that brought out these extraordinary talents and this desire to help people not be afraid of death?
Basically, I'd had a very severe accident, and a life-threatening one, and I was in the hospital in the emergency department. They brought me in by ambulance, and I was lying there, and I was losing copious amounts of blood at that stage, and my left arm had been severed, and then I suddenly went from all the frantic sort of the doctors all frantically running around trying to save me, and these voices flying over my head, and the lights screaming in my eyes. I suddenly went from all that drama to a really beautiful, calm sort of place. And it was like felt like a lovely warm room that I was in. And it's quite dark. It's very darkened. And I thought, wow, this is great. Where am I? And I remember just lying there. And I saw these lovely orbs, colors that were kind of like slowly pulsating all around me. And that calmed me straight away. And I'd gone from all this massive adrenaline high to, not high, but rush, I should say, to a complete calmness. And I looked around to see where I was. I figured right away that I was dead. I thought that I passed on to the next stage.
So you actually thought that right there? You're like, I'm dead.
Yeah. Well, I kind of figured, because I knew that I was, I was in a bad way, and so I figured this must be it. I passed on, and I had no sense of like fear or like, wow, no, I don't want to die. It was more, I didn't resist it, is what I'm saying. I accepted it because it just felt so beautiful, and I just looked around me to see what death was like, what in this place that I'd now moved on to, and I realised instead of lying on the old hospital trolley that I was on, I was looked down. I was laid on a huge slate rock. It was like a medieval altar, if you like. And as I lay out on this piece of rock, I noticed that I was no longer clothed, but I felt completely comfortable. And I just lay back down, and I thought, what about my wounds? So I looked, and my left arm was back in place. Everything was unscathed. Everything looked totally healed, and so I thought, wow, this is amazing. Then I looked up. I felt a presence that there was somebody close by, like there was somebody else near. And then when I looked up, I saw at the right of my feet, it's like this, like an androgynous being, like neither male nor female, stood there, just gazing at me with this lovely smile, like a very calming smile. And I thought, who are you? I thought, I know you, don't I? And I thought, I've known you the whole of my life and beyond. There was this real connection, I don't know if you know, if you've been to a party or what have you, and you meet somebody for the first time, and you get chatting, you say to each other, I feel like I've known you for ages, and it was very much like that, but a lot stronger, it was like, wow. And this beautiful being was just, felt like it was caring for me as well. I felt like this sense of care, and I felt completely at ease in the presence of it. And so I lay back down, and as I did, then I looked up, and there were like 3 grids of white light suddenly were closing in on me, and these grids of white light were shining right into my eyes, and I couldn't take my gaze away, because I felt like this light was so beautiful and pure that it was healing me. And I just figured, how come I can look into this light and it's not hurting my eyes like sunlight or electric light? But it didn't. It's absolutely cool. And then I felt the presence of 2 other beings, and I looked, and either side of me were 2 females that had suddenly appeared, and they got their hands kind of stretched out over my body, and they were just kind of like hovering their hands over, and it was as if there was this love coming from their hands into my body. And it was like, it's like my whole body was just kind of almost like every molecule was kind of vibrating with this sensation of love. Wow. One of them was like kind of sort of very European looking, and with brown hair and green eyes, and the other one was more American Indian or Asian Indian in appearance, and she was just looking at me again. I didn't know these 2. I didn't feel like I had any strong connection with them both, but all I felt was that they were healing my soul. You know, they were healing not the trauma that I just had in the accident, but all the anxiety and all the heaviness that I carried throughout my whole life was just kind of dispersed, and it was all disappearing from me. So it was a fantastic sensation.
That sounds so beautiful. No wonder you weren't scared to be there. And then tell us more. I'm riveted.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Yeah. And so I knew at that point that what they were doing, I knew, well, I felt they were preparing me for something. I thought, what are they, where am I going next? I felt like I was being prepared, you know, and like I was being cleansed and throughout my soul. And then I suddenly thought about my family, because my family had arrived in the hospital at that point, just as I had left my body, and they were around me, and I thought they were distressed enough as it was, because I just had this awful accident. And then I looked down to see if I could see them. I thought that they're going to be stood around my dead body.
Oh,
Yeah, so I know, but they weren't. I couldn't see them at all. You know, when I looked. What I did see was this most beautiful sight. It was like a huge waterfall of stars. It was like an arc of stars. Almost, when I say an arc, it was like looking at Niagara Falls. You know, it was just huge and vast, and then the stars were just cascading over the edge and falling down. And as I looked down, I looked and I could see they were dropping down into other galaxies, and then even further beyond into infinity, basically, and into beautiful colors. There was like all these oranges and greens again, but they were really bright, and as these stars and shooting stars were falling through the middle. So it was really remarkable. And I thought, actually, you know what? I'm not in a small darkened room at all. I'm in the universe itself, and
that must have been mind blowing.
No, it totally was. You know, it was like what you just said there. That's a perfect expression. It felt mind blowing, because I was just going, "Wow, this is incredible!" You know, and I was just going, "I'm loving this. This is remarkable. If this is the other side, when brilliant!" You know, in fact, I thought to myself, me of old would have been really anxious and feeling guilty and about my family. You know, that they would have been distressed. But I thought to myself, do you know what? They're going to be cool. I'm going to see them soon. They're going to be up here. If I don't see them up here, they're going to be enjoying what I'm enjoying now. So there's nothing to worry about, you know. So all that had gone. And I pulled my head back round from looking at this beautiful vision of the stars. And then the most amazing thing followed that. I felt that there was a presence of something else which was even more powerful and than the three beings. And I looked ahead of me, and there was a huge tunnel of white light, and it was coming towards me. And this huge tunnel was like surrounded by all these flames that were slowly sort of rotating around the tunnel. And as it drew in towards me, the energy from that was just so overwhelming and so powerful. And I knew straight away, even though I had no faith before, as I said, that this was God. This was the source of all creation, and this is where it all comes from. You know, not the image of God that we're all used to seeing. You know, in the ceiling of the Vatican in Rome. It's like, it's not a man; it's a huge tunnel of white light, and this is it. So that was incredible, and I just laid my head back, and I was kind of going, wow, you know, I was kind of laughing with complete joy at all this. And as I laid my head back at that point, I suddenly came crashing back down into my body in the hospital. And I know, yeah, it was like all the pain came rushing straight back, and all the reality of everything was really quite overpowering me. But you know what? A lot of people say to me, "Oh, you must have been really disappointed, and you must have felt, oh, you know, why have they sent me back?" But I wasn't, actually, because I was so charged with the energy of it all that all I could think of was, why did that happen, and why did they send me back? More like sort of, you know, what's my mission, as it were? Because I thought, I've just got to tell everybody about this. I figured at that point I was the only person that it had happened to. I'd never heard of near-death experiences before, so
That's adorable.
so yeah,
Well,
and
so you came back
yeah.
and you were charged. Now, I have this question. I think the audience will have this question too. Do you think that you now know how to paint and how to work with music because of the influence of the exposure of what happened? Or could it have been part of your injury and your brain, the way it rewired, a combination of both? Explain to us how you now have these extraordinary abilities after your experience. And also, I noticed that your whole demeanor is just, you're oozing love.
Oh, thank you. um, uh, I don't actually think it's this to do with the accident itself. The accident was pretty dramatic. I was pulled under a speeding train,
Oh,
and I went under a train, and by a miracle I survived it. You know, the British rail police did a massive inquiry on the whole accident,
mhm.
and they said afterwards, it took them a year. They said, you know what, we've done all our maths and all our measurements and everything, and looked at all the footage, and you should be dead. We don't know how you survived this. We just can't get it, you know. And I knew that something more powerful than all that had saved me that day. And when I came back, as I said, I thought I've got to tell the world about this. So I figured the first thing I wanted to do was create a large painting to show people what I'd seen. And I thought it's got to be a really big canvas. It's got to be like a Michelangelo's Renaissance painting, you know, because it's got to be dramatic so that everyone can see it.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't even stop to think, but I can't do that, you know. I just figured I would be able to do it. But there's this energy that I channel through, that I feel that I'm channeling through from the other side every time I paint and every time I write music for orchestra. And I continue to channel that stuff. I mean, I when I first started painting, the very first one I did, I used to stop at the end of each day and I'd look at it and I'd go, wow, you know, I didn't do that. I was helped with this, you know. I would literally stop and I'd sit in my chair and go, thank you so much, you know, which I still do. I still thank them because, you know, without the energy that's coming through, I wouldn't be able to do all this at all.
So I
So,
feel like it's obvious who you are today through this conversation. And by the way, I'm absolutely loving it. Who were you before? Like, what is I ask everybody who I interview, what are a few words that you could describe that is a stark difference between who you were then and now?
right. Well, who I was before was, I was just, my life was, if you like, was like that. You know, it was just skimming the surface, and it was just onwards. And I never stopped to get in touch with myself. I never stopped to give myself any self worth or any self love. And you know, I was aspiring to higher goals, and a lot of those higher goals were empty and unobtainable. Whereas now I would say that my life is more three-dimensional, and
Mm.
it's not just like that. It's like that as well. You know, there's the ups and the downs, but I stopped to get in touch with myself and connect, and I live for the moment, as it were. You know, I stop and appreciate the moment, and
Beautiful. So was this book an outpouring of the experience? So you painted and then music and then writing? Is this how it happened?
yeah. I mean, it did come about because I mean, I'd wanted to tell my story for some time, and as I say, I'm dyslexic, so it's taken me a while to get it together, but it's there now, and that I was guided by that, you know, because I'd written it, and I thought, right, you know, it'd be great to get it published, and you know, one of my friends said, oh, you could you know, maybe self-publish it. I thought, well, let's see if we can get someone to publish it, and um, just by chance one day a guy got in touch with me. I tried a few publishers in the UK, and they said, look, I'm sorry, it's a great story, but it's not for us, you know, we don't put those kind of books out.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody passed it on to this guy called Michael Mann, and he was from a publisher. He said, I've read your story, I love it, do you mind if I take it to the rest of the team? I said, please, yeah, you know. And so they said, yeah, we want to sign you up. So I got published through O Books, and it's just kind of developed from there. I got in touch with right after my accident. The very first painting I did, I got in touch. I did research online, and then I discovered that near-death experiences and what they were,
Mm-hmm.
and that had happened to me. And I read up on Dr. Raymond Moody, and
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was sending my painting. I didn't know just how big he was at that point, and he got back to me. He loved the painting, and I thought,
Wonderful.
wow, that's amazing, you know. So it was just a couple of lines, you know, just a few sentences, but they were really beautiful sentences. And so when I got the book together, this is before it was even published, I thought I'll send it to him, see if he'll look at that also. And he didn't get back for a couple of months. And then his manager did and
Mm-hmm.
said, look, I've just seen your website and I've seen the trailer and I've seen the whole, and I love it. She said, I think, you know, Raymond's going to love this. So leave it with me. So she passed it on and got him to read it. And then she got back to me. She said, "Yeah, Raymond loves the book, and he said that he would write an acknowledgement for
Yes.
it, if you
Hmm.
like." And
I saw that. I saw that in the little area because you are going to be speaking at the third annual Near Death Experience Summit, and I saw the
that's right.
write up there. Are you excited about that?
I'm incredibly excited about it. It's going to be great because you know it's opened me up to new people as well who are going to be talking there. And there's some really exciting people who are going to be taking part in that. You know.
What is the message that you're sending through your book?
Okay, well, basically, the whole message I want to come from that book, which I hope it seems to have done so far, is that, you know, as I say, I was a regular guy, but I was down on my luck. I was, you know, everything was going wrong for me. And after my near-death experience, I learnt self-love. And once I'd learnt that self-love, it suddenly turned my life around. Life became, as I say, more three-dimensional, and I was able to find different elements within myself that were there, that were coming out. And I think that it's something we can all do. We don't need to have a a terrible accident like mine,
Mm.
or an NDE to discover it. You know, we can find it within ourselves. So hopefully people will see that, you know, it's a feel good book as well. I mean, obviously there's a
Mhm.
few gritty moments, but
Mhm.
like all great movies, you know, you've got to have the hard stuff as well, you know, to bring out the happy ending and what have you. So yeah.
Okay, so you talked about self love, and I truly do believe that that is kind of like the cure. And to me, it's the elixir, the balm of the heart, the elixir of the soul, the connection with everyone. Explain to me why you value that experience and why you're bringing that forth, self love, because not everybody has gone to the other side. Not everybody has dreams that take them to the other side. Why is self love so important, David?
Because it's it helps you to discover the authentic real you. You know, it helps you to love yourself and go, actually, you know, I'm not that guy that I'm aspiring to be. I don't need to be that guy that I was aspiring to be. You know, I love myself, and when you do love yourself, it helps you to stop and take your time and think about where you want to go with your life. And it's interesting when you do that; those doors start to open without you pushing them. You know, new doors open that you didn't think would open, and new people come into your life, and you'll find that that synchronicity will happen once you find that self-love, because really it's self-worth as well. And once you've got self-worth, people are attracted to that, and so the laws of attraction will turn around and make life a lot more fulfilling
Oh
and
my
as I say,
gosh, you can't
authentic.
believe how much I love that you said that. Makes me
Great.
emotional. Thank you so much again. Yeah,
Bless you.
I'm
Yeah.
going to stop this because, wow.